Hey friends, welcome back to the Gentleman's Journey. Guys, in this one, we are doing the ultimate comparison of two American icons. Guys, we have the Redwing mock toe and the Thorogood mock toe. We're gonna get through some of the differences. Of course, I'm gonna be injecting my opinion throughout the whole video. Guys, I think it's gonna be fun, so stick around and hang out. So one of the first things that I get asked about all the time on boots is the leather. So let's break from tradition. Rather than doing like my review and top down, let's get into the leather a bit. So both of these boots here have oil tan leather. Now over here at Redwing, they have their own tannery, so they're producing their leather. This is Redwing's copper rough and tough. And then over here at Thorogood, this is again an oil tan leather, and they say that it's sourced here in the United States. Of course, these are both American boots, and the leather couldn't be more different in ways though. So I gotta say, I love this Thorogood leather. It's one of my favorite leathers, and equally in the same statement, this again is one of my favorite leathers. It's the second time that I've had this copper rough and tough, so I came back to it. I had it with my roughnecks and I really love the color of it. And then over here, one of the things that I like about the Thorogood leather is it's soft and supple, and it was just comfortable right out the gate. A little bit about the thickness. Over here you have 1.5 millimeters, and this is like 2 to 2.5. So obviously you're gonna have variations across the cowhide, if you will, in different parts of the leather. Will be different thicknesses, but on average you can expect this to be a little bit thinner of a leather. And part of the thing that makes this so supple and soft is that it's tumbled. So they put it in a big old vat and they tumble it, and you'll see that right out the gate. It looks almost a little bit wrinkly in some aspects, and it's just softer. So in my estimation, and a lot of folks can agree with me, that the Redwing copper rough and tough leather and a lot of the Redwing leathers are just better than this leather here. Now they have this boot offering in the Crazy Horse. Of course, you're gonna see a bunch of different colors here in Redwing. Keeps playing with different colors on their mock toes. A lot of people have fun with all the different variations. They have some limited edition runs and stuff like that. But we're gonna try to focus as much as we can just on these two boots today. At any rate, I feel like this is a better look and better profile all around. Now, something you'll notice that stands out, the difference between these right away, is the stitching on the side of the Thorogoods. If you look closer, they have their own label stamped in. If you were to get the work boot, this is a heritage line boot. Redwing actually stamps their logo into the upper, but the stitching across there is one of the most noticeable things. So I think for me on this boot, the stitching just works. It just does something for me that it looks really good and it just works, but I can't say that I would want it over here on the Redwing. Now friends, I'm gonna pull out another boot, and I'm not adding it into the mix, but just for kind of explanation purposes here, this boot I think looks like it needs something like this stitching here. I talked about that in my video. This is the Brunt boot. I'm not throwing it into the mix because I don't think it's worthy of comparison to these boots. It just pales in comparison, not because these two are United States and this is a Chinese boot. No, it's because the quality and the materials are just lacking. So again, we're not throwing this into the mix, but you can see that little difference there. I think the stitching, I call this kind of a space boot because it's lined and it's just thick and puffy. It reminds me of high tops, maybe some Nikes that we had in the late 80s, early 90s. But something to note on here, you'll see this little Brunt tag on the front there. That's what some guys run with the American flag here. I'm not even sure if that does anything for me. For what it's worth, I really do like the American flag, even though I've let mine get really dirty on the side of this boot. But I think, again, I'm happy that it's left off this boot. And what that does for me, it makes this one a little bit more dressy. So if I was to take my wife out for dinner on a date, I would definitely grab these boots over these boots. Although I gotta say, both of them would look great if I had some nice denim jeans on and I was riding a Harley Davidson. So I think either of these boots can also look tough, but these look a little bit tougher. Again, something to keep in mind, I said that these are not Redwing's work boots, so you're gonna be lacking in some of the safety specs that you might see in their work line. Strangely enough, and I don't know how they explain this, the work boots are $20 cheaper in the mock toe, and of course they offer some of those safety specs. This boot over here is a work boot, where this is the Heritage line, this actually has all your safety standards in there, and you can get a safety toe as well. This one is not. One of the next things that I get asked about all the time is the pricing on boots, and that's a point of contention. So these guys over here are $259 where I bought them at the Boot Barn, and these guys are like $357 where I got them over at the Redwing store. Now friends, I bought both of these boots, so I didn't have them sent out to me, but over here on the Gentleman's Journey, I do a lot of brand deals. I get boots sent to me all the time, so just let you know though, when I get boots sent to me, I have not signed a single contract yet, so I'm not going to be backed in a corner. I'm always going to be giving my review. In fact, I've turned down a couple companies because they wanted to see my videos before they came out, and that's just not the direction I want to go with the channel. I want to always be able to tell you guys exactly how I feel, which is why even though these guys sent the boots out to me, I'm telling you they're not going to be compared in this video because they just don't hold up. So that's what you're getting on this channel, is my opinion. If you want more of that, make sure and subscribe. But friends, onto the pricing. You know, I had a guy even recently say, when mentioned that I said these guys are kind of your entry-level cheaper boots, and that's because you guys have seen me over there at Nick's, at White's, at Frank's, some of these top-tier Pacific Northwest boots. There's a lot of boots out there that you'll throw down $400, $500, $600 in a hurry. Beyond that, like I said, these were $250 range, these are $350 range, so you're already looking at $100 difference. So that's something for a guy to keep in mind. I always talk to you guys about making sure you spend your money wisely, because every time that you spend $1, that dollar was time that you were away from your family. So that's really valuable to us. Beyond that, we want to be good stewards of the money that God gives us, right? So something to keep in mind there. They say that these boots actually last about as long as these ones do. So, you know, if you're really just looking for the most bang for your buck, I'm going to go ahead and give the first win over here to Thorogood. Another win that I would say is right out the gate, comfortability. You know, these guys, you can put them on and there is just no break-in period. These guys, you're looking at like 3 to 6 weeks. And that's, you know, it's a thicker leather, it's tougher. They're both oil tan, but just the process there is a harder boot to break into. So something that I recommend and that I did, I guess we'll just move right into kind of the cleaning and care because it works in the same realm. I took some of the leather conditioner by Cobbler's Choice here, and I actually worked it into the whole boot. Now I did think that these boots came a little bit dry. I usually don't condition boots for a long time after I get them. I didn't condition these for a long time. In fact, if you look back some of the videos I've done, I did a video on BlackRock and I chose these boots. So I don't think that was the first conditioner I had on these boots. I can't remember, but I didn't keep it all to one conditioner. In fact, over here on these guys, I didn't either. Back looking at my Roughnecks, again, it was copper rough and tough. I have a whole cleaning video on those boots, and I did try to stay with kind of the Redwing leather cream. So this stuff won't darken it. It's gonna condition it well. And I always tell you guys, if you're not sure what to do, just go with the manufacturer's recommendation and you can't go wrong. They always put out great products and you just can't go wrong. I think if you're giving your boots any love at all, you're probably in the top, you know, 1 to 10% at any rate. What I did, and I think this is a tip that I got maybe up at one of the Pacific Northwest boot makers, is as you're trying to work in a boot, maybe you have something over here on the ball, outside the ball of your foot. Maybe you have something on your pinky toe that just won't work in, or maybe just the whole boot is kind of tough. You know, go ahead and coat it with some leather conditioner. Of course, they use a lot of open-offs and stuff on some of those boots, but maybe hit some of the hot spots that you can't seem to be breaking in, or do what I did, and I thought this boot was a little dry, so I went ahead and covered the whole boot and took it out for a walk. Now you'll see in all my conditioning videos, again, that copper rough and tough. The video over here where I was conditioning these guys, a good rule of thumb is to wash and condition the boots and then give it 12 to 24 hours before you condition, then condition it and just leave it overnight. And that way you can let it just cure and dry, and then sometimes the waxes pick up extra dirt. So if the boots are really waxy or after being conditioned, you might just be collecting more dirt right away. That's why I always recommend having 2 sets of boots. You know, maybe you have the Thorogoods that you're wearing, one day you decide to clean them, you can put these guys aside and give them the full treatment while you're wearing these guys. But at any rate, to kind of combat some of the hard to break inness, that's not a word, but of these boots, I went ahead and conditioned it. Don't do like some people do and just walk through a creek and then run with it. As good of as an idea that sounds, it's not the best way to go. But in terms of walking through a creek, both of these boots are essentially water resistant. They probably say waterproof, but I think with a leather boot, you're looking at a water resistant boot. And some of that is built into kind of the stitching, and then of course down to the welt. Why not move on to the welt? Both of these are Goodyear welted, and they have the storm welt. So over here on the Redwing, you're gonna have a leather storm welt, and this is kind of a reverse split something storm welt. At any rate, they're both resolable. Over here on the Thorogoods, maybe a mark in the negative for this boot. The storm welt is actually plastic. It looks leather and it looks sharp. It looks just fine. I haven't had a lot of guys comment that that's given out on them, but you'd rather see that leather than plastic that could break down. The thing is, what's happening on these boots though, is apparently a lot of guys are having them split. Now again, I did buy my boots, so it's not something where Thorogood sent me out a pair of boots that they knew were made really well because they knew I was going to be reviewing them. No, that's not the case. I just went to the boot barn, bought these off the shelf, and I gotta tell you, I'm a couple of, a year and a half into these boots now, and I haven't seen any kind of splitting going on. I do have a big collection of boots, and I have to work through all of them to give you guys a bunch of reviews. But you can tell I'm already wearing, because I walk funny, wearing out the heel. I've been putting some wear on them and they just haven't split on me. I would say if you're maybe electrical, maybe a carpenter, and you're bending down and creasing all days, I think that's where you start seeing it split. So I think a lot of folks are having the outsole split long before this storm welt is cracking up on them. All of that can be fixed and replaced and changed when you send your boots into a cobbler. The good thing, friends, when we're working or when we're buying these kind of boots, this outsole, you're kind of expecting to have a resole, maybe 1, 2, 3 resoles while you still use the same upper. And that's why we buy these, and that's what the aim is. This is we'll get into the outsole a little bit. They put a lot of technology, a lot of thought into them, but being the softer, more comfortable outsole, you just can't get around wearing through those. And the good thing is that the uppers are made to handle several resoles. So at any rate, they're both Goodyear welted boots ready to be resoled. And now let's get into the midsole a little bit. Both of them have a bit of a liner. So over here on the Redwings, you have a leather liner with a little bit of foam on it. Then you have a hard layer of leather. Then you have a poured cork midsole, and then a little bit of rubber in there, and then obviously you're working your way out to the outsole. This boot does not have a shank, whereas this boot does. So again, they have their proprietary liner. This is their, ultimate shock absorb system. You can see some differences there. This is not, it has foam in there, so it's not all natural either. So don't think it is. Maybe a tad bit of arch in this guy, but not much. From there, you're gonna have foam. You're gonna have a little bit of cork and rubber as well. And then this has a fiberglass kind of composite shank in there. And then you got, again, you're moving your way out to the outsole. So there's not a clear defining midsole, outsole on this type of boot. I mean, there is, but it kind of still, the midsole and outsole kind of work together. And that's the cool thing about this boot. Some of the midsoles on these can be swapped out when you're getting your boot off to your cobbler and he's doing some work. All that stuff can be reworked as well. Now, in terms of that shank, that's where this boot gets kind of interesting. Now, friends, I am only in this, 6 months or something, where I am like a year and a half in these. So I still think I got a ways to go, but these are definitely broke in. I broke them in a while back. And what Redwing says is on this last, they don't have as much toe spring as they do the 23 last. So this is the 45 last. Then in my Iron Rangers, I have the number 8 last. They're saying that this one doesn't have as much toe spring, and that's the toe springing, if you will. Whereas this guy with the shank has more, I would say. However, Of course, the shank is more in this part of the boot, and standing all day, a lot of guys will say that this is a really good boot for standing all day. I've noticed that this one is still stiffer, even though it doesn't have the shank, but I guess you'd kind of expect that because the shank stops short of the toe spring. But it is stiff, so even though this is, I got something on the bottom there, even though this is a boot that has that crepe kind of wedge outsole, it's definitely still pretty stiff. Essentially with either outsole, you're pretty much working in the same category. There's minor details of differences. You know, they do say that this wedge outsole was made by Thorogood because they were running the Vibram, I guess, back in the day, and they were finding that they weren't lasting very long. At any rate, they developed their own, and now supposedly it lasts 25% better. Again, that's still a complaint. I see a lot of guys saying that they run through these soles, but not to harp on that too much, but that's why we get these, so we can resole them. That's something that these guys down here, you're not going to be resoling. They've kind of developed their own thing, putting some rubber on there that they think will help that work, and time will tell, and we'll get into that on a whole different video. Off to the sizing and kind of the fit, you know, we talked about the break-in process and how you might have to put a little bit of conditioner and stuff like that, but I gotta tell you, back to this last over here, I would say that surprisingly I found my Redwings to have a little bit more room in them. So the Redwings are on the 8 last, this is the 45, and they say that this has more room than the 23 last. If that's all just weird to you, don't worry, it is to me as well, but it's something to think about. The weird thing about that, on the contrary though, is I've been into a boot store, maybe the Boot Barn, and I've grabbed a size 11 Redwing, we'll say, and then I grabbed another size 11 Redwing, and they just fit different. I don't know what that is, so comparing these to my Iron Rangers in the fit, I can't figure it out. They're both size 11, and the Redwings, the Iron Rangers just seem to fit a little bit better. So again, I can't figure that out. We're gonna give it another 6 months, maybe at the 1 year review mark, I'll tell you guys a little more about that, but these guys still just seem a little bit more snug than my Iron Rangers do. Again, the Iron Ranger is the number 8 last, and these are the 45. These are supposed to be more roomy than the 23 last, but these have always been more comfortable. The only comfort issue I've ever had with these is the tongue. So it's a gusseted tongue, and you gotta fold it. It's important, especially when you get started, that you fold it right, because it's gonna kind of take that shape, and it's gonna be that way a while. So at any rate, you could put some conditioner on this too, and get it to soften up a little bit, and maybe refold it a different way, but you're really training the tongue to fold however you fold it on the first go of it. So I can't remember now if it's the left or the right boot, but that's probably the main complaint I've had, is just sometimes it'll start pinching. We might be hiking or something, and I'll have to take it off and readjust it, and then it seems to work itself out, and then I get going. So maybe I just messed up on those particular days, but it has been a constant issue that I faced. Other from that, these guys again have just been comfortable right out the gate. These boots have such a wide variety of range in the sizes. You know, I think it's something like 5 to 13 with a couple half sizes over here. 5 to 13 again with a couple half sizes. They both have the standard D width and then the double E. I went with 11D on both of these boots. Again, I went with 11D on my Iron Rangers, and that seems to be the go for me. So I measured just under a 12 on the Brannick device. So I've kind of sized down 3/4 of a size. They say size half a size down, and that's working really good for me. I did have 11.5 in my Roughnecks, and I finally realized they were just too big and they weren't comfortable, so I got rid of them. So I went half a size down in my Iron Rangers, and then when I got these, I knew that was the size to get. I did go into a store when I bought these. I think I might have tried a couple on just for fun, and that was the go for me. So I've taken both of these boots on long hikes. I've had them for quite a time now, especially these guys, and those are some of my thoughts in comparison. You know, if I really had to stack it up, you take the price difference, best bang for your buck is probably these guys, because they just seem to last just as long as the Redwings. Let me know in the comments if you have a different experience with them, but that seems to be kind of the summary that I can gather looking at different videos and different reviews and Reddit and stuff from some gentlemen that say these last about as long. A lot of guys are getting several resoles out of them. The main issue is just the outsole detaching, and you get some of that over here with the Redwing too, the outsole detaching. Luckily you can fix that. I gotta say, I think again, if I was gonna take my wife on a date, I would take the Redwings. They just have a little bit better profile to them, but you can pull these off with some jeans and look pretty good for just having a night out. And then again, it'll go and you'll be on the warehouse floor, you'll be working, doing your thing, and you'll fit right in with the other gentlemen, and it's just as much work boot as the next boot. So I think they're really great options. If I was stuck and I just had to choose one, I would grab these guys because I think the quality overall is that much more. Is it $100 more difference? That's gonna be up to you guys. Maybe you can find a deal on them. I'm gonna drop a link to both boots. I'm gonna drop a link to all this conditioner. And if you don't, I have a good little Cobbler's Choice horsehair brush. You can brush it off, get all the dust off, do your thing. And then if you get a wax, maybe like their leather cream here, it's a bit more waxy, you can go ahead and brush that back in with your brush. Always got to have that in every kit for gentlemen. I'd love to answer any questions. I try my best to think of everything over the past year and a half and 6 months with these boots. Throw together a little comparison video. We'll see if this suffices for you guys. I'd love to answer any questions you have. But most of all, let me know in the comment section below, hey, what's your experience with these boots? Am I way off on anything? I'd love to know what y'all think. So guys, we got a bunch of new stuff coming out on the Gentleman's Journey. Got some new boots that are coming. I got a really awesome hoodie coming to my house just in time for fall. So hope to show you guys that. And I'd love to know what you guys want to see over here on the channel. Well, friends, until the next video, God bless. And hey, don't forget to give these boots some love from time to time. I know that I'm past due on these Thorogood, so I'm going to be getting them in. But at any rate, we'll catch you in the next one.